Do you know what I love more than stalling Ben 10 such that it never ends? As I scam people on YouTube, the avatar people are crashing out and crying. The Patreon members are saying, please, when's the next upload? And I'm like, nope. You know what I love more than that? Power scaling videos. Especially when you're power scaling like shit like this. Ben 10 versus Goku. But you know what? Let's lock in. Take it seriously. I have an open mind. I want to hear why Ben 10 versus Goku isn't even close for who. Now, let me think of it like this. I feel like the overall power scaling argument will boil down to the fact that Goku is an alien. He is a Saiyan. Ben could easily transform into a Saiyan, an Apex Saiyan at that, and most likely the same argument that you could use for Goku about how he surpasses his opponent could be used for Ben as well, but even better as he is an Apex Prime Saiyan. I think it's that. Spoilers from 41 seconds to 50 seconds? Got it. Let's go.
Ben 10 versus Goku has been a topic I've had calling out to me, like the Green Goblin mask to Willem Dafoe in the 2002 Spider-Man film.
I already love this. I love this reference. I love the Green Goblin. I love this actor, bro. And the way his schizo, he's like, do you know what I did for this company?
2002 Spider-Man film. Kuro's video on this very topic was my introduction to the Ink Tank, who through watching them inspired me to make this channel in the first place.
Cool.
So right off the bat, Ben 10 and Dragon Ball are probably the two most major franchises I grew up watching.
All right.
Dragon Ball Z was my introduction to anime and action cartoons alike.
Bro didn't watch Dragon Ball. I mean, I didn't watch OG. I don't know if there's an OG Dragon. There probably is. I read the manga, right? I read the OG Dragon Ball manga, and then Dragon Ball Z happened. Definitely grew up with this shit. I love it.
I watched through Z countless times, Kai a few times.
I love Dragon Ball Talk. There's an account on TikTok that has such like deep philosophical analysis of Dragon Ball, which you wouldn't even think would be possible, but it's actually fucking chills.
And then I went back and watched Dragon Ball. I used to borrow GT from our local Blockbuster.
No, we gotta shout this guy out right now. I actually love this guy's content. Like, if you enjoy Dragon Ball content, go check this guy out. His name on TikTok is Justin's Den. Right here. You see this? Fuck. No, I'm gonna screenshot this. No, I want to do a proper shout out because this guy's content actually is like quite compelling. If you again enjoy like deep philosophical like introspections of this type of stuff, go to this guy's channel. It's so fucking good. Justin's Den. His written like his commentary, his soundtrack usage, the way that this content is presented, it's actually like, whoa. Like I'm getting chills. Wait, like hold up, the writing kind of fucking fire.
And when the Battle of the Gods film was announced, I felt like life couldn't get any better. And since then I've watched through Super alongside...
Spoilers incoming! Spoilers incoming!
So going into this, my credentials include being a lifelong fan of both of these series, and when I started working this, I had no clear winner in mind. I think this matchup inherently creates issues. When it comes to power scaling, or even just discussions of any character with any physical ability at all, it always results in the inevitable question of, could they beat Goku though? Pick just about any character from any shonen anime series and
I think the argument of could they beat Goku though ultimately comes down to the fact that Goku constantly powers up after he loses to eventually surpass his opponent, right? There's a lot of like random power scaling happening for like Saitama versus Goku as well. And like the basically the logic here is, well, Saitama is conceptually supposed to be infinite scaling, right? If you've seen the battle versus Gaara, you would know that like he has no limit. It's unlimited. He ramps up and it's unlimited. Goku is kind of like Garo in a sense of trying to surpass his limits and then approaching a limit and breaking through it over and over again. And as long as the battle continues, then you would have to boil down to, well, where is Saitama's actual limit? This asymptotic, you know, Mugen concept, if you've done calculus, right? It's gonna keep going and keep going and keep going until it kind of stops. Would Goku be able to surpass that in time? I think it's a disingenuous argument because the logic that Goku would win simply based off of the concept that he would be beaten and then surpass Zenkai Boost and grow stronger, you already lost. You already fucking lost. You know? Every single time, Goku again fights a new enemy. They're so strong. He loses in a way. And then round 2, round 3, then he wins. So yeah, I think he would lose against Saitama. Immediately, right away. And then maybe he get back up and try harder. For against Ben, This is a more interesting one. Because again, it's Saiyan versus Saiyan now. Maybe you'd have to consider the limitations of the Omnitrix, of the, what's it called, cooldown, right? How long could you stay in that state? But I think the argument again boils down to both races are the same. Ben's Omnitrix would turn him into the Apex Saiyan, which has more latent potential and whatever than Goku. But the time limit of it, it would kind of start to kind of muddy the waters.
Anime series, and you'll be met with that question. And probably more relevant to today's topic, any character really.
Also, beyond the argument of Ben turning into the Saiyan to fight against Goku as a Saiyan duo, Alien X could simply deliberate and delete Goku. Didn't even think about that because I was too fixated on taking alien DNA and using it against you. What the fuck is Goku gonna do against Alien X? The only argument there is, well, deliberation. Yeah, but for the sake of the argument here, the deliberation would go through because you're trying to figure out the most optimal way of trying to see who would win, right? Both sides are coming up with their strongest fucking feats. Easily he would win.
If a character's ever been in a tussle or a punch-on or whatever you want to call it, that question's been raised. And when it comes to comparing Ben 10, you come across a similar retort with, yeah, but what about Alien X?
What about Animo though? Could Animo beat Goku? That's a video you're not ready for.
Oh, and for those of you who aren't familiar with me or this channel, I'm a pretty big fan of all 4 series of Ben 10. Before we go any further, if you're enjoying what I sort of do here, I'd really appreciate subscribing. Otherwise, if you want to share this with a friend, a group chat, a Discord community, that would be greatly appreciated, but back into the video.
I will react to your video in a lazy way, pop it out, and share your channels. That's my contribution. Thank you.
I've been watching since 2005, and while I've always enjoyed this series, I really fell back in love with the franchise when I went back and revisited Omniverse in 2018 or so. Now, as I've said a number of times, I'm by no means a power scaler. I'm quite a fan of both of these series, but I've never been that kind of person who sits down and really crunches the numbers.
Power scaling within the same series makes sense. Power scaling different fandoms is when it gets silly.
I think there's a space for that, and I do really enjoy that style of content from time to time. Thailand and Swag Kage come to mind here, but I'll also be going over these from a more casual perspective. And let's just quickly establish that we're covering the version of Goku at the end of the Tournament of Power, post Ultra Instinct, but
Ultra Instinct, sure.
That's been happening in the manga as of late.
Sure.
As far as any versus battle, I usually go off the presumption that they'd act as they would under normal circumstances, given who they are and how they'd react when facing against an opponent normally. So in both instances, neither of these characters really want to outright kill the other, they'd act as they normally would in their respective series. No outside help, no extra equipment besides what they normally carry on them, and so on. As far as most of any of Ben's alien transformations we've seen in the series, I'm not seeing many of them standing much of a chance here.
Yeah, other than Alien X, I don't even know if Atomics is strong enough to compare to Super Saiyan Goku. I feel like Atomics isn't really that strong considering all the other forms. Alien X is the only form that I think will really compete. Upchuck is an interesting concept because he could simply swallow and it'd be gone. All the energy bolts, right? Like, for example, the magnitude of what 20 suns was the threat during the -10, right? With the hater forever night dude coming in, Upchuck saved the day. I'm sure there are powers that Goku emits that exceeds 20 suns, but still, Upchuck has easily done that. I could think he could do even more. Gray matter is... So you would have to argue that gray matter would have like an anti-Saiyan, beam or something, but he would have to construct that on the spot. How much prep time is there? Is it just on the spot? I don't know.
Even incredibly heavy hitter.
Gray matter turns into prep time Batman memes of like, how much time do you have prep? Are we just going into it? Does gray matter have to make it from the start? I feel like coming into the battle already prepared, with all these countermeasures is disingenuous.
There's like way bigger atomics don't really stack up to a post Dragon Ball Super Goku. Now, I'd be silly not to discuss the idea of Ben using the Omnitrix's DNA acquisition feature, allowing Ben to scan any...
Omnitrix can change Goku DNA into a normal human is an interesting concept. If you go back to the DNA aliens in Alien Force against the hybrids and how Ben was able to revert them. But that would imply, but that's different, right? How was that mechanic done? They were originally human. Was Goku originally human? No. Can he do that? I'm not sure. But like, clearly the Omnitrix is able to turn a human into different aliens, like Ben. So I don't think it'd be too far of a reach to assume you could do that.
Species, and in this instance, against Goku, Ben could scan him right off the bat or even during the fight in order to unlock a Saiyan transformation. And in line with what we see from the Omnitrix in this series, this would allow Ben to transform into a prime example of what a Saiyan is. I'm imagining Ben would likely become a Saiyan around the level of the Saiyan saga or even maybe the Frieza saga of Dragon Ball.
Not even that, right? The concept of Ben turning into an alien breed always has to do with the prime state. Goku is not a prime Saiyan. Goku is a fucking normie trash. This is a fact. In terms of potential, Vegeta is much more capable than Goku at birth, right? Am I wrong about that or am I right? Broly is different. Broly is inherently that potential, right? Goku's entire concept is he's a casual, yet he never gives up. And his ambitions and drive and willpower allows him to constantly Zenkai boost and surpass his opponents to the state that he becomes a legendary Saiyan. The legendary Super Saiyan is not a title just given to people that were born with that potential. The Saiyans never trained. Do you understand this? Versus the Frieza saga back in the day when Bardock was around, King Vegeta and them, they were so arrogant. They believed that through their pure blood Saiyan pride, their base starting stats, that was good enough. But if they actually grinded like Goku, they would surpass it. They didn't. That's their downfall. Everyone else becoming Super Saiyan off of Goku generation beyond that has nothing to do with fate or destiny. They achieved that on their own. They earned that shit, right? So again, Goku is a casual that turned into that. Ben would change into someone that's beyond Goku. Like the base stats would be way higher, right? But at that point, then what? Would during the heat of the battle, Ben continuously achieve this different states? Because Goku has had multiple decades to achieve all these different statuses in Super Saiyan. It's really hard for me to imagine that in the heat of the battle, Ben would just unlock Ultra Instinct eventually. Like, you know what I mean? It would take time for you to understand how to even achieve these things.
Of the Saiyans.
It would basically be this level of Goku versus like starting state Broly. Base level Broly, you know? And that's easily Goku. So again, the battle really is nuanced in how you're setting it up.
Saga, or even maybe the Frieza saga of Dragon Ball Z. I can even see Ben becoming a Super Saiyan, but despite that, Goku, through dedicating his life to getting stronger, has
exactly right here is what I'm talking about.
Reached heights beyond any ordinary Saiyan. And post-Super, with the unlocking of a Super Saiyan God or Super Saiyan Blue,
that would be done within that single battle. I think he'd die before that.
Any Saiyan form Ben could use would be functionally redundant. I've seen people argue that Ben's Saiyan form would more be comparable to Broly, but seeing as Broly, at least the Dragon Ball Super version, seems more like an outlier within the species, not an example of what a prime Saiyan is.
An outlier isn't considered a prime? Why not?
Though if we were to see an animated version of this, I'd certainly love to see how Ben would follow in Broly's footsteps against Goku.
I feel like a prime is an outlier. Is it not?
But for now, we're going with the assumption that Ben becomes a Saiyan on par with sort of a pre-Cell Saga Goku, well before he started facing off against godlike beings.
At that point, he would just... But then you have to think of it like this. Are we going to then use Goku's like mentality in the battle? Do you think a person like Goku would immediately kill Ben like that? What does Goku do? What do Saiyans do? You know what the most inherent trait of a Saiyan is? They play with their food when they're stronger than their opponent. They never finish the fight. This is a very observable fact throughout the series. Saiyans, once they're strong, they know that they can win. You see this shit happening in the Cell Saga too. You see this shit happening so many times. They get cocky and they want to see. Let's see it. Come on. They toy with them and see how stronger can you get. That's what they do. It's their inherent nature. So I do think that like the assumption that Goku would immediately go Ultra Instinct and kill Ben is wrong. And using that logic to then allow Ben to climb up in power to achieve that full potential of that Prime Saiyan, if we use this understanding, Ben would eventually win, I think. But then you have to think of it like, okay, well, Goku is still Goku though. Ben is still Prime Saiyan, and Goku would allow him to reach his full potential. But Goku, wouldn't he then surpass that limit? He would have to lose a couple times first to then surpass the limit. That's what I'm saying.
And speaking of godlike beings, let's get into what...
Ben would get cocky too. Yeah, they all... But no matter what, then we kind of go in a loop of they're both getting cocky. Eventually, one Saiyan's gonna win. I mean, that's what happened versus Goku versus Vegeta, right?
I'm sure most everyone watching this has been anticipating with Alien X. By the end of Omniverse, Ben gains full control over Alien X,
cool,
allowing him to fully access this transformation's limitless powers as he...
Yeah, we're just driving it, right? No deliberation, is just super fucking human feats.
Wish. As a brief example of what this transformation is capable of, when the universe was destroyed in its entirety, Alien X was left unaffected. Not only that, but Ben as Alien X was then able to recreate it. And if Alien X's species being all-powerful wasn't enough, Ben using this transformation was able to beat another member of the same species in hand-to-hand combat. Simply put, he has reality manipulation, he can control space and time, and what I've seen people call mind control, but it more felt like he was manipulating their bodies more so.
That was crazy, some telekinesis shit, right? They were struggling and they were forced to shoot each other down, right? It was crazy. Bro multiplied himself, but the weight of each clone was like that of like a planet, and then span around Galactic Gladiator and created a black hole. That's a crazy feat.
So, not that he wouldn't be capable of mind control, but more so I don't feel like that's what was happening in this instance, though I suppose he can warp reality to make himself control minds. Now, in a strictly who would win, Ben as Alien X could erase Goku from existence. He could zap his ki away, he could literally...
He could do that assuming that they would deliberate immediately. And now again, we're metagaming, not really thinking of what would happen in a real situation. Again, right? Would Goku immediately kill Ben? Or would he, in a real situation, allow Ben to scale up? What would Alien X do? Would they deliberate and say, no, no, no? I think they would not deliberate. I think they would get stuck in an argument. Again, it really depends on how you're setting up this fight.
To do anything here. There isn't really a limitation as far as his ability to warp reality goes. But that doesn't really feel in line with Ben's character. So let's go over what would really happen here.
In their character, right? This is a big point. Are we just heavily optimizing, just metagaming this such that they just immediately use a trump card right away? Or are we going to play with what their characters' natures are?
Taking into consideration who these characters are and how they'd really come to blows, in a one-on-one fight, just the two of them, I'm seeing Ben cycling through aliens as Goku slowly goes from his base form to Super Saiyan, and eventually reaching Super Saiyan God, or if not, Super Saiyan Blue.
I'm sorry, I think regular Goku with Kaioken would be enough to handle most of Ben's aliens. There are exceptions like Upchuck where it's a bit different, right? Or Azimuth or Galvin's, right? For whatever reasons you want to have prep time, but I really don't think Atomics could really compete with base state Goku and Kaioken. What have we seen really Atomics do? Shoot beam attacks? Okay, cool. I've seen a lot of beam attacks too that Goku's dealt with before. That's my gut instinct. I don't think Atomics could really fight against Super Saiyan Goku. I think even base Goku might be too much.
And inevitably Ben transforming into Alien X, escalating the fight beyond Goku's wildest dreams. And really this is Goku's dream. Meeting an opponent that's so far beyond him, proving there's even higher heights than what he's ever...
Now Jet Ray could do this though. Where's the Jet Ray propaganda? We forgot about that. Jet Ray could win.
...ever come up against. Nothing any enemy has ever thrown at Goku could really compare to what Ben is capable of here. Even the Gods of Destructions, the aliens in the series, all pale in comparison to Alien X. Though I suppose Zeno would likely be able to compare with him. But
that guy is so cool. The flowing beard, it's all just a cosmos in there.
Zeno would likely be able to compare with him. But we're discussing a pure physical brawl here. Imagine the spectacle of Ben duplicating himself, overwhelming Goku, only for this beam of light to come shining out.
Black
with the reveal
hole.
Of Ultra Instinct. If you're not familiar with Ultra Instinct, the mastered version at least allows the user to dodge and counter attacks instinctively without thinking.
Yeah.
So what I'm getting at here is that you'd have this unstoppable force coming at Goku with Goku holding his own to a point. Up until inevitably Alien X in all his infinite power wears Goku down and he loses that form.
Yeah, Ultra Instinct again is the concept of what? No reaction lag. You are able to literally just move before, like there's like a time limit delay of when your brain processes something to react. There is nothing. He basically can just do everything instantaneously. That is kind of crazy. It's a different type of movement, but even then I feel like to Alien X it might be pretty difficult.
Slipping for even a moment would result in his defeat. And it's only really a matter of time until he does slip up or run out of energy. And if Ben feels like being a bad sport here, he could literally do whatever. He could erase Goku from existence.
Whoa, Sieg Ben. I want the Ben that was willing to put down Kevin. That kind of Ben in the mind here versus Goku. He would not fuck around.
This has more so been a look at what would happen in line with these characters rather than who on paper is more powerful. To put it succinctly, in a purely physical brawl, I think you'd be surprised just how well Goku holds his own, at least for a bit.
Okay.
Otherwise, Alien X can reality warp Goku out of existence. It's hard to encapsulate just how much I adore these two series. If you have any thoughts or feelings on what I've said or feel it would play out differently, let me know. Otherwise, thanks for watching.
How did it conclude this? He concluded by saying it's like an immovable object versus unstoppable force, yet eventually Goku would slip up. That Alien X is too much. We give it to Alien X here, right? Again, right? I feel like a lot of power scaling, people want to have absolute. I think power scaling subjects are very open-ended. I think it's very open-ended. It like, notice how I designed the battle, the parameters at play. Are we optimizing? Are we metagaming? Are we just going to immediately do it? Are we going to think about the different characters' nature? How about the prep time? How about the time it's required for Ben to achieve the different Saiyans if he really went Saiyan? Oh, if we're going to Alien X, what if we're going to deliberate? What about base form, right? There's a lot of different things into consideration. But at the end of the day, I think Alien X would win. But Ben wouldn't defeat Goku like that immediately. And eventually Goku would then... Like, I feel like Ben is the opponent that would allow Goku to climb up stronger and stronger. Genuinely. Right? I'm considering the character nature here. Even if Ben... Like, here's the thing. If Ben was not allowed to deliberate, Ben would physically dominate Goku, but not completely beat him, and Goku would then Zenkai boost and come back to win. Now, if you consider him having a Zenkai boost a loss, then sure, he lost there. But considering the character nature, Goku would come back and win eventually. But that's a bit disingenuous. And if he did deliberate, it wouldn't be even close. So I give it to Alien X then. Hope you understood my thought process. That was a very fun video. Thank you, DrWardy, for this video. Guys, please go check out this guy's video. If there's any other power scaling videos that you guys would like me to check out, please let me know. Link to the comments right there. Go to check out his channel. See you next time.